Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. My name's Jack. I'm doing a PhD at the University of Sheffield and I focus on the epistemology of testimony. I've been working recently on a project concerning testimonial discriminations, and that's what I'd like to speak to you about today. So let's begin. Now, in order to know some proposition P from your report that P, first I have to accept it. So let's say you tell me that the shop is open. In order to know this from your report, I have to first accept it. But of course, acceptance isn't our only response to testimony. We can also reject it. And this is what we do. Sometimes we accept the speaker's report, but sometimes we reject it. In other words, we discriminate between bits of testimony. And it's clear that we do this. But what's not clear is the basis on which those discriminations are made and how this allows for knowledge. Today, I'm going to argue that our testimonial discriminations must be truth-directed. And here's my proposal. We start off with the social fact that we discriminate between bits of testimony. Next, we've got an epistemic principle that if a given piece of testimonial acceptance is based on a discrimination which is not truth-directed, then testimonial knowledge cannot be acquired. Then we've got an epistemic fact that we do acquire knowledge from testimony by and large. And then we've got our epistemic consequent, that our testimonial discriminations must be truth-directed by and large. Today I'm going to be focusing on this epistemic principle here, and I'm going to argue for it by way of this argument from doxastic responsibility, and it goes like this. If a given piece of testimonial acceptance is based on a discrimination which is not truth-directed, then the subject behaves in a doxastically irresponsible manner. And if a subject is doxastically irresponsible, then that subject cannot attain knowledge. And from here, we get the epistemic principle that if a given piece of testimonial acceptance is based on a discrimination which is not truth-directed, then testimonial knowledge cannot be attained. Okay, consider Aesop's boy who cried wolf. You've got a shepherd boy who's tasked with guarding the sheep, but he becomes bored and decides to play a trick on the local villagers. The boy shouts wolf very loudly, and as a result the villagers rush to the boy's aid, fearing that a wolf is in the flock. When they arrive, they see no sign of any wolf, and they leave. The next day, the boy plays the same trick. Again, the villagers rush to him, but see no sign of any wolf. The following day, a wolf comes along and attacks the sheep. The boy shouts wolf, but no villagers arrive. They hear him, but they do not believe him. Let's call this the original version, and let's contrast it with something called the gullible version. Let's imagine a version in which, on that third cry of wolf, the villagers sincerely believe the boy's report. It's not just that they hear him and act as if he's telling the truth. It's not that they roll their eyes and go, oh, he's playing the same trick, but let's go anyway. Rather, in this gullible version, the villagers sincerely believe the boy's report. And I want to ask this question. If the villagers continue instead to believe the boy's report after having been tricked, can they come to know that there's a wolf in the flock on the basis of his testimony? Now, of course, when they get to the flock and they see the wolf, they know that there's a wolf in the flock. I want to know, can they come to know this on the basis of his testimony? And I'm going to argue that they can't, and this is because they behave in a doxastically irresponsible manner. So what's the problem? Well, intuitively, the villagers seem to have good reason to believe that the boy's being deceptive, and they fail to respond appropriately to this information. The information being the track record they have of the boy's reporting truths. He's lied to them twice in as many days. So it seems that they're neglecting some information here. It seems epistemically, the villagers do something other than they should. They believe other than they should, and they also inquire other than they should. That is, They adopt the doxastic state of belief when they should adopt a different doxastic state, but also the manner of their inquiry, the way they're going about things, seems all wrong. So let's examine this in a bit more detail. What can we say about inquiry? Well, inquiries can go better or worse. Consider an agent who is incredibly stubborn. We typically see this as negatively affecting their ability to effectively inquire. If you're stubborn, this isn't exactly a compliment. It's not something good. It's not a desirable quality to exhibit. We see it as epistemically harmful. Being sensitive to detail, however, this is a good quality to exhibit when you're inquiring. We see this as a desirable quality to exhibit. Consider a doctor who is diagnosing her patients. If she's being stubborn, we don't really think of her as doing her job properly. But if she's being sensitive to detail, we think, yes, that's what a good epistemic agent does. So continuing along this route, we can follow the likes of Montmarquet, Zygzebski, Hookway, and Baer, arguing that character traits such as inquisitiveness, attentiveness, honesty, impartiality, and so on should be thought of as epistemic virtues, and they should be thought of in this way given the role that they play in inquiry. These character traits are associated with a good epistemic inquiry. These are desirable qualities to exhibit. But stubbornness and carelessness, they're not. We can see them as epistemic vices given their association with a defective inquiry. These qualities seem epistemically harmful in some sense. The picture that's emerging here is that in order to acquire knowledge, we have to inquire in the right sort of way. It's not just about a belief that we have, it's about getting to it in the right way. Perhaps then we can say something like, one comes to know something because it's a true belief arrived at by an intellectually virtuous agent conducting an intellectually virtuous inquiry. Or as Zygzebski says, a true belief believed out of intellectual virtue. Let's return to the gullible villagers. What can we say? Well, as we've said, the gullible villagers neglect valuable data. Therefore, they fail to come to believe that there's a wolf in the flock as a result of any intellectual virtue. They don't believe out of intellectual virtue. It's not a result of their attentiveness or sensitivity to detail that they believe that there's a wolf in the flock. It's due to their gullibility. So they're not attentive when they should be. And so they can be blamed for their epistemic failings. We can say, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing something else. Now, McDowell suggests that considerations in favour of the truth or falsity of some proposition P have some rational force. And in order to know some proposition P, agents have to be sensitive to that rational force. If they're not sensitive, then they're doxastically irresponsible. He writes, we could not conceive remembering that things are thus and so, say, as a standing in the space of reasons, if a subject could count as being in that position, even if he were not responsive to the rational force of independently available considerations. We need to engage with the target proposition, and we need to be sensitive to considerations that have some kind of bearing on the truth of the proposition in question. If we're not, then we can't be deemed as knowing that proposition. Now, applied to testimony, we can say, as Faulkner does, that being doxastically responsible is a matter of being sensitive to those considerations that could be advanced in favour of the truth or falsity of a piece of testimony. Viewed in this way, we can see that doxastic responsibility is a kind of defence against gullibility, stubbornness, carelessness, and other epistemic vices. The gullible person believes too readily. The stubborn person sticks to their guns and doesn't budge when they should. And the careless person, they're just not motivated to conduct an inquiry in the way that they should be. So none of these people are sensitive to considerations that could be advanced in favour of the truth or falsity of a piece of testimony. Now let's consider a new case. A new villager comes to town. She's got no information about the boy or the gullible villagers, and she's not heard any of the boy's cries. The new villager hears the boy shout, "Wolf!" She believes that there's a wolf in the flock, and upon arrival, sees the wolf in the flock. The question is, does this villager know that there's a wolf in the flock from the boy's report? Well, I see no reason to say why she doesn't know that, but I want to add something here. We need to ask, is she disposed such that if she did have reason to believe that the boy was lying or that his report was false, she would react to it, she would respond to it appropriately? So let's examine this dispositional claim a bit more. Consider the following. In A, the new villager arrives and hears the boy's cry of wolf. She has no reason to suspect that he's a liar, but even if she did have reason to suspect this, she would still accept the boy's report. And contrast this with B. The new villager arrives and hears the boy's cry of wolf. She has no reason to suspect that he's a liar. If she did have reason to suspect this, she would carefully consider whether or not he was being deceitful. So there's a big difference between A and B. In A, the new villager is disposed such that even if she was aware of the same considerations, she would neglect them, and therefore she would be doxastically irresponsible. So it seems that she's going about things in a bad way. Her disposition is other than it should be. As a result, we can say she has poor epistemic conduct. She should be disposed such that if she was aware of such considerations, she would reflect on them seriously. And that's what B does. And so we can regard B as having, the agent in B as having proper epistemic conduct. Now, I've been focusing here on premise 2, that if a subject is doxastically irresponsible, that subject cannot attain knowledge. So I'm going to speak a little bit about premise 1 here, that if a given piece of testimonial acceptance is based on a discrimination which is not truth-directed, then the subject behaves in a doxastically irresponsible manner. And before doing that, I should speak a little bit about what I mean by a truth-directed testimonial discrimination. And I describe it in a way very similar to how Faulkner described doxastic responsibility. So making a truth-directed testimonial discrimination is a matter of being sensitive to considerations that could be advanced in favour of the truth or falsity of a piece of testimony. What else can we say? Well, let's look at a case of a non-truth directed testimonial discrimination and see what else we can get from it. Take a case of flattering testimony. A only accepts speaker's reports when the report is flattering to A. So as such, A does not make truth-directed testimonial discriminations. Now, S reports to A that P, and it's true that P, and P is also flattering to A, so A accepts that P. But in making discriminations on the basis of whether the speaker's report is or isn't flattering, A thereby fails to be sensitive to considerations in favour of the truth or falsity of P. So A is therefore doxastically responsible and has poor epistemic conduct. A just isn't concerned with the truth of P. A is concerned with whether it's flattering or not. So as such, A does not know that P. A fails to satisfy the necessary condition of doxastic responsibility. Okay, I'm going to wrap things up here. So I've been arguing in favour of premise 1 and 2 here, which gets me to this epistemic principle that if a given piece of testimonial acceptance is based on a discrimination which is not truth-directed, then testimonial knowledge cannot be attained. And that slots into this proposal here, which gives us the epistemic consequent that our testimonial discriminations must be truth-directed by and large. Okay, so thank you very much for sticking with me. I'd be very grateful to get your thoughts on this. This is a project that I've been working on for a little bit now, and I intend to do some more work on it. I'd also like to thank the organisers. I think it's really fantastic. They've managed to go ahead with the conference. Okay. Thank you.